start. Welcome back, everybody. This is the final bit before the final. So thank you for coming back. Oh, everyone's moved around my screen again. I don't know what you're doing, Rachel, but can you stop? Welcome to Ellen Chapman from TrickleNet. For those with a really poor memory and didn't remember what I said earlier, Ellen is the inaugural winner of the 10 by 10 program back in 2019. Back in the days when we actually had a prize. Rather shitty glass trophy. It's not. It's a really good glass trophy. It's lovely. It's lovely. James wants to win it. So welcome, Ellen. We just thought it'd be really useful as they've had the pitching workshop this morning, and obviously we've scared a few of them off by telling them what they've got to face, and they don't have the advantage that you had. You had a week between your pitching workshop and the pitching final. These guys have got a weekend. We're pitching on Monday. So why don't you start us off by telling us about the background to how TrickleNet came about and your kind of personal journey up to the point of Eureka.
Yeah, so I've always worked in the equestrian industry. I always worked with horses. I'm a trained instructor and coach, and in previous businesses that I ran, I was a professional rider and set up a consultancy service in horse sales as well, which was unique in its day. I used to school and sell horses too. So horses were my strong background, and I know the industry extremely well. I had a horse called Sully, who actually found him when I lived in Northern Ireland. He was a yearling living on a yard that I used to run, and the owners didn't really want him, and so I brought him back to England with me, backed him, broke him, competed him, and had him for an awful long time. So I knew him since he was a yearling. When he was 15 years old, which is, still in a horse's prime, he became quite poorly, and I couldn't put my finger on what was going on with him. He lost weight. He became quite lethargic. His coat was dull. We'd just come out of his best ever season, bloodhounding, which is hunting. It's a very fast, full-on sport with horses. And so he was at his fitter than he'd ever been in his life. I was pregnant at the time. And as I got bigger, I decided that he was a bit poorly. He didn't feel so good. Perhaps it's time to give him some time off. That was actually the worst thing I could have done, because it turned out he had a condition called equine metabolic syndrome, which can be likened to type 2 diabetes in humans. So the exercise I had been giving him was keeping his insulin levels down. And probably certainly keeping him from further illness, but I didn't know this. So when his exercise stopped, he became very poorly. And a side effect of this condition is a symptom, but a condition in itself called laminitis. Laminitis in horses is extremely serious and can be life-threatening on its own. Laminitis is a condition where the soft tissue in the foot becomes inflamed and swells, and very often it doesn't get better. We can't control the pain, and so the horses are put to sleep. Sully became laminitic, so he was very poorly, and the key to getting on top of laminitis and the metabolic syndrome, which, as I said, could be likened to type 2 diabetes, so you might see where I'm going with this. The key to all of this is diet management. Although Sully was a very, very fit horse when he became poorly, earlier in his life, he had been overweight. And you just never know when that damage is happening. So with horses are not supposed to be overweight. They're flight animals, and carrying excess weight will do them permanent damage. So if a horse carries too much weight for just a couple of years in its youth, damage can be done, which will catch up later in life when a certain trigger happens, an event happens later in life. That damage will then come back to haunt them, and they'll get laminitis. So diet is the main the main way that we can manage and get on top of this condition, and lots of other conditions with horses as well. Horses are trickle feeders. You know, we all know this. You don't have to ride horses to know that horses graze, and that's particularly important to their physical health and to their mental well-being as well. However, when you have a sick horse, you have to put them in a stable, and horses on box rest don't do well. One of the main problems is that they can't graze in the stable. And I was looking for a product which would help me feed my horse his restricted ration of forage, but prolong the length of time that would take him to eat. So he was in his stable 24 hours a day. With normal products, normal hay nets, his entire daily ration of hay could be gone within a couple of hours. Well, then he's got 22 hours standing in his stable with nothing to eat, just focused on the pain. So I knew there was, I needed a product that was going to trickle feed him in the stable. If I had a chance at getting him well again, I had to find this product, but there wasn't one on the market. So I started working with, I started looking at different types of netting and started contacting netting manufacturers in the UK. Looked at all sorts of different compositions, different materials. Found a netting importer, quite local, fairly local, is in Lincolnshire, and I went out to work with them on making some prototypes. We tested several prototypes, and Sully, bless him, helped me land on the final design, which was the Trickle Net original. Back then it was just called Trickle Net because I didn't realize the value of building a brand. I've since learned about that. So back then it was just called a Trickle Net. He thoroughly tested it. However, unfortunately, he was just too poorly, and after 10 long months in his stable, he took the decision from me, and we lost him, which was extremely sad. But I'm a very I try and anything sad or difficult in my life, I try and learn lessons from it, and I do look for a silver lining wherever I can. You know, I make the best of situations. And so I looked at this and thought, you know, I've lost this horse, but I have a product here which certainly helped to nurse him, helped to manage his condition for as long a time as he had the best shot at getting better. And so I've lost him, but this product can certainly help other horses, and there's definitely a need for this on the market. So NFU paid out his insurance, his loss, the value of his loss, and that money went into the first batch of Trickle Nets. And I started with a very amateur homemade website, and I'm not techie in the slightest, so it was a real bodge job website. We got the first batch of nets in from the manufacturer I'd been working with, and from day one I couldn't keep up with the orders. There was no paid advertising. It was all word of mouth on the forums. Do you remember when we used to go on forums back then? And there was the Horse and Hound forum and the Natural Horse forum, and I used to go on make these profiles and ask people if they've heard of Trickle Net before, and just get people talking about the product. And yeah, it went insane. And so here we are, 9 years later, and now we're doing rather well. Trickle Net is a brand. It's a well-known brand in the industry. It's certainly the leading brand in its field, in the UK, if not the world. Actually, there's no other, as far as I'm aware, there is no other brand globally that's specialized like we do. We sell internationally, we sell to trade, we sell to wholesale, and for retail sellers as well. We're sending nets out to Finland and Latvia. We've got an order to go to the Netherlands today, and because there's a global problem with equine health, in that too many horses are overweight. We all know, we've all seen overweight domestic animals, whether it's cats or dogs. Horses are going the same way, and this is a very man-made problem. Animals tend to follow suit where humans go. So humans are naturally eating processed food and thinking and moving less. And now we're doing the same thing to our animals as well. So there are an awful lot of obese horses around the globe, and this is bringing equine health to a crisis point. And so owners are seeking out these products. So eventually we're going to take over the world and be the global leader in trickle feeding products. And yeah.
So how long had you been dealing with trickle nets before you became a company, before you became a business? I mean, at the start point, you were just prototyping. At what point did you tip?
The company was incorporated in 2016. I began selling the products in 2011. So is it 2011? Yes, it was 2011. So yeah, for 5 years, it was just ticking over as a real kitchen table business. You know, I was a single mom. I had other businesses on the go as well. I was training horses and trying to sell a few horses, and this would be, you know, I'd get my little girl off to bed in the evening, and then I'd be packing trickle nets, and then I'd be, people at the post office the next morning would despise me when I turned up with 20 parcels. And yeah, and that's how it was for 5 years. And then I started, I knew it was growing. I knew the growth in this was insane, because my biggest problem was keeping up with orders and getting the products made on time. And so it got to a point where I thought, right, I need to be focusing more on growing the business, selling the products and working on the supply line, and less on packing nets, you know, printing labels and all that hands-on stuff is all very well. And I quite enjoy doing it. I've been doing it recently because we've got some new products that I'm having to ship out of the office. So that at the moment, I quite enjoy that hands-on stuff, but it's not growing the business. So I realized that I've got to outsource that. I've got to ship that out. And that's kind of 2016 was a big year for TrickleNet. We incorporated the business. We started to use a fulfillment service whereby I could just send the stock to the warehouse, run the business from my home office, and not actually, you know, never put my hands on the product. And that was the year that I met you as well, Russell. And
oh, there we go. What a pivotal year in your life that must have been. That's why it's so memorable. So you'd been trading officially as a company for 2.5 years or so before the original 10x10 pilot. What business support had you had in that interim period?
Very little, because in my experience, it's really hard to find this support. As a small business, there's no one place where you can where you know you'll go and find the support that you probably don't know you need, to be fair. I think that's a big thing with running businesses. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And so networking is really, really important. You need to get out there and network. But so I think I'd contacted BizLinks, and I think it was through BizLinks that I got that I think they put me in touch with you, because it was they'd said about funded support. Prior to that, I did make some notes on what support I'd had. BizLinks. Oh, through BizLinks, I got involved in some funded courses as well. So just day courses where I fill a form out and I go and do a course on might be marketing but there was a couple of those, but there was no huge support. I was still very much you've got to go and find it. In my experience, you've got to go and find it, because the support from an organisation like Greenborough has been priceless to me.
Checks in the post.
But had somebody not said get in touch with Russell, I wouldn't have known.
I'll remind you of how we first met.
Oh, go on. Oh, yeah.
So we have a mutual business contact. Well, he's a friend now for me, and I've known him probably for 16, 17 years. who's a lawyer, who was advising you on the terms of a potential equity investment deal. And he phoned me up and said, have you got a spare half hour? I've got this client and I think they're just about to sign what I think is a really duff deal.
That was it, yeah.
But I'm kind of in an awkward position and I can't tell her I think this deal's shit. We're amongst friends. We can use earthy language. So I went across town, met you in a solicitor's office, sat down, looked at the deal and said, do not sign this. Do not touch it with a barge pole. There are better ways of finding money. And that's actually the first time we met.
Yeah. I remember now. Yeah, of course. I remember that very well. I remember you saving me from the sharks. But you know what? And that kind of ties into what we've just been saying about finding help and support when you're kind of on your own and you're running your own business. And I don't have any business training. I don't have a business degree behind me. I just know my industry really well, and I'm quite good at selling stuff. So without having the knowledge and the support behind me, when somebody comes along and says, we'll give you 60 grand for a third of your business, I was blown away. I was like, wow, somebody puts that much value on my business. I had no idea what my business was worth.
Well, and you turn the piece of paper over that says, oh, and by the way, in addition to the 60 grand we'll put into your business, you're going to have to contract us to run all your accounts for you and do all your bookkeeping, which will charge you something ridiculous like 20 grand a year for. So in 3 years' time, we'll have a third of your business and all of our money back.
Yeah.
So okay,
but you just get dazzled by this because
absolutely,
because you don't know otherwise, and you need. I know we're going to talk about some, trusted advice. You need some trusted advice to haul you back away from the edge of falling into that sort of pit. And thank goodness I got it.
So we'd stayed in touch for 2.5 years. Michelle kicked me in a car on the way back from Sheffield. Actually, she didn't kick me. She elbowed me in the car on the way back from Sheffield and said, why are we going to someone else or coming back from somebody else's accelerator program? Why do we not set up our own? And that was the birth of 10 by 10. And we were kind of looking around for guinea pigs, I think is the very unpleasant way of describing it. And we said to Ellen, do you want to come and join the 10 by 10 program? It's a trial. Talk us through the 10 by 10 experience, not the pitching, because we'll come to the pitching in a minute. But talk us through the process, what you put into it, what you got out of it. How did it work for you as a program?
It was fantastic. The first thing, I thought it was quite clever that you did it on a Monday, and I think that's a good format because Mondays are most of us are most busy on a Monday, so you have to give it some commitment. You've got to rearrange around this. In fact, I arranged a trip to India around it. I left after 10 by 10 and arrived very late, so I could make the next one. So it requires a lot of commitment, which is great. I think that's what you need to see from your businesses. The best thing about it by far was the camaraderie with the other businesses and learning about what they do. For me, it was great to be able to see because my business was kind of mid-range in that cohort of businesses. There were some businesses that were considerably bigger than mine, but some that were quite a lot smaller as well. And so it was really interesting for me to see kind of where my business is going and what sort of challenges those businesses are now dealing with, and also look at the smaller businesses and recognize the challenges that I had to deal with and be able to help them as well. There was I remember Holly, for example. Holly had some trouble with couriers and getting her products out because they were large, bulky products. And I've been there. I've had the same problem, so I was able to give her some good contacts and some good advice on that. So yeah, having those other businesses around and having the time to chat to them and learn with them as well was really, really useful, I felt. Obviously, the mentors were amazing. I was so lucky to get Craig Marsh as a mentor. Craig, who heads up the University Business School, and Craig was utterly invaluable to me. And you know, in our few meetings, he was able to really nail down what I was struggling with in the business, and just break it down very. I think you need an outsider's perspective sometimes. You need someone who has experience but is not tied in any way to your business, and is just able to see things far more clearly than you are, because you're in the swamp of it. And so Craig was able to pinpoint some issues that I could resolve quite simply. He kind of said, look, you need to prioritize resolving these, because ultimately that's going to give you far more time for these. So Craig was amazing. Craig was great. And then of course all the ladies and the gentlemen who came along to run the day courses and the training as well. There was such a wealth of experience, huge wealth of experience there. And to be able to, the way I describe it best, it's like each course, each day was like a concentrated shot of information and experience and knowledge. It was like super concentrated shot, even though it was like it was a sample of a course, but there was so much information there. But you kind of came away thinking, right, well, I know where to go if I need to know more about that bit or that bit. You know, you could come away and you could discard some that wasn't relevant, perhaps, although most of it, I found 99% of it was relevant. But just having such a huge wealth of information handed over to you, and the contacts were unreal as well. Everybody that came to train us was really happy for us to, you know, contact them later. And they were basically giving us, you know, they had worked on this training, and they were giving us not just their knowledge and their experience, but their graft as well. And I really appreciated that. It was good.
Very good. So that was the good bits. Now the grotty bits. How did you find the pitching? What were your thought processes running up to the pitching, and then kind of talk us through the practice, the rehearsal, and then the day?
I was terrified.
Yes,
terrified.
You were. Yes, you were.
I remember physically shaking as I stood beside you, Russell. I was physically shaking.
That's a normal human reaction, Ellen. That's why they lock me in this cave.
Yeah, I was terrified. I'd practiced my pitch over and over, sort of the week running up. There's certain sections in the pitch that I tried to condense information so that I wasn't waffling too much about anything that was irrelevant, because of course we were timed. But I wanted to make sure that I got certain points across which were particularly important. I believe I forgot to mention laminitis in the pitch. Anyway, so yeah, I practiced and timed myself and practiced. But actually, when you get up there, and I was able to have some cue cards to help me as well. It's tough. It's tough when all eyes are on you. But I think you need to believe, even, of course, you're going to be nervous. Of course you are. But you need to believe that if you love what you do, passion will show. That will come through. Judges, anybody in the room is going to pick up on that. If you know your business well, and if you love what you do, it will show. Even if you fluff your pitch, it will show. And to some extent, you can probably patch it over with a bit of passion. So, one really good tip that Craig gave me, actually, and I did use this in my pitch, is the rule of 3. So I had a huge amount of information to get over. We had a PowerPoint, and so I had some slides behind me with, you know, animals and children. Always a winner. But also there was a lot of information on the slides, a lot of bullet points on the slides. Now I believe that people are able to read the slides for themselves. I'm not going to stand there, and this is what you should avoid at all costs.
They don't get a choice, Ellen. They're not getting PowerPoints.
They're not getting. Oh no. Okay.
We've toughened up a bit since your cushy days.
Oh well, if you're not getting PowerPoints,
carry on with the experience though.
Yes. So the experience was, Craig gave me the rule of 3, which was get your 3 major points across. It could be 3 points throughout your whole pitch, or it could be 3 points per section of your pitch. Any less than that, maybe a little vague. Any more than that may confuse people and switch them off. So, and that was a really helpful thing for me. I remember, absolutely shaking. I was terrified. I do know my business really, really well, and I know my numbers really well. But one of the first questions from the judges threw me totally. And it was how many units I had sold, which I wasn't able to answer. I could tell him the turnover. I could tell him, but I couldn't, because we sell different products back then. I believe we did sell 5 products back then. To pull unit sales of one product was not something I was expecting. And I thought, oh dear, oh shoot, I've knackered it. But I could fall back on the numbers that I did know. So then I was able to say, okay, I can't give you that answer, but I can tell you this is what we've taken between this date and this date. And from that, he actually just did a calculation and said, okay, so you've basically sold roughly this amount of units. Talking about the products and believing in the products was something really easy for me. I think I think the questions are easier than the pitch itself. So when the judges come back to you with questions, for me, that's when I could relax a little bit. That's when I wasn't performing anymore. I was just able to go, so this one does this, and this is how we make this, and so it's just the performance that is the difficult bit. But if you know your business well and you're passionate about what you do, it will come through.
So despite your slip up or your lack of having those numbers at your fingertips, it just plays to what we were talking about this morning. Enthusiasm, dynamism, credibility, commitment comes across in spades, and we'll cover all sorts of other little gaps and weaknesses in the pitch.
Definitely.
So it's been 20 something months since you graduated, if we can use that as a phrase, from 10 by 10. What have you been able to take from that 10 by 10 experience and plow into your business since?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm still in touch with my mentor. I'm still in touch with the other businesses that I did the course with. And I have a host of contacts now that I can call on if I need to. And that's super valuable to anybody running a business. Contacts is very, very valuable. The networking that we were able to do throughout that course was second to none for me, really second to none. The course taught me certain skills in, I'm a better manager for it. I'm better able to, I've always had trouble prioritizing my time. I'm extremely busy in work and in my private life as well. I've got a daughter and horses, and sometimes I'm quite sporty. And the course did help me to learn how to prioritize tasks and prioritize time, and that was a big thing for me. That was a really big thing for me. What else came from it? Just so much. It's a really easy one that came for it. Putting me in touch with the university, as it did, I was able to learn about what the university can do for local businesses. I had no idea there was all this support from the uni. I'd already learned that there was a lot of support from Greenborough, from BizLinks, but the support we've had from the uni was fantastic. So one of the guys who came to talk, and you'll know which one it is, and I forget his name, which is terrible of me, but he was talking about the internship schemes from the university. And I'd never considered this before, although desperately needed more staff. I desperately needed some help. So I followed this up, and off the back of that, I interviewed people for an internship role within TrickleNet, and from that I employed Ollie as a operations guy, which is the area of the business that I'm most struggling. Ollie did one internship, then he did some casual work, and then he went on to do a second internship. So through these internships, the university have been funded. They've funded half of his wages, which is incredible. I was so grateful for that. And now Ollie is employed by TrickleNet as operations manager, and he does a great job. And he knows the business as well as I do now. In fact, he probably knows the business better than I do. I know the products and the industry. He knows business. Yeah. So he's
given you the capacity to be able to focus on what you do best.
And, exactly.
Outsource, even if it's internally, the bits that don't float your boat.
Exactly. In fact, we were going to take on just before COVID hit us. We were going to take on another person. We have a role available for customer services and marketing, but then COVID hit and everything got turned upside down. And for a long time, I couldn't have people working with me in the office. So that's still on the cards. I need to get back and get that up and going again. So yeah, I mean, just what did I take from 10 by 10 was huge amounts of information, knowledge. Just if I have a problem within the business now, my brain will automatically go back to a place on that 10 by 10 course, to a person or something that was said, or a day's course, or one of the other businesses that might have faced a similar challenge. And there'll be an answer there. And if there's not an answer there already, there'll be a person I can contact, or I'll go back and look at my notes, which I still keep. So I've got a huge amount from it.
Brilliant. And of course, you met Michelle.
Of course.
Who is your favourite livery? Which is one of the questions she wanted me to ask.
Livery, she'd be like, I don't know, I haven't got any.
Do you know, for a long time I was saying, come and ride my horses, Michelle, and it never happened. And then COVID came along, boom.
Now look.
Brexit daily.
Never mind, you can't win at everything, Ellen. So talk to me about product portfolio. So TrickleNet started off as it's an awful pun, but a one-trick pony.
Yeah,
it was a single product business. How's TrickleNet as a business developed beyond that original TrickleNet idea?
So yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think it's been a lesson for me in learning about how to build a brand. So I made a product and I called it a TrickleNet. And when I made that product, I could never envisage where I'd be several years later with a string of products with with all different uses and sizes. And so from the first product, I've always been very keen to listen to customers, and customers would come back to me and say, we love this, but could you make it like this? So the second product we made was the small bail net. So from a net which you hang in the stable, which most people use if they have a horse, there was no such thing as a net which would go over an entire bale of hay. And such a thing would be ideal for feeding horses in the field, feeding multiple horses on yards, etc. Lots of people were asking for it. So I went out and designed one. And we made it, and that product came around. And then more people were saying, we love the TrickleNet, but it's a little bit large because we've got a pony and da-da-da. And then it was round about 2016. That was a huge year for the company. I took my first trip over to India to work, to start to develop a relationship with an overseas supplier, which obviously is going to enable huge amounts of growth, which it did. And so working with them, I then developed a TrickleNet Mini, but they also opened up my eyes to different materials and different methods of construction, and all the things that they can do. They're kind of world leaders in polyethylene extrusion for aquaculture applications, which is probably sounds really boring, but to me that's quite exciting.
You shouldn't take your job as their marketing lead, for sure.
So they showed me all these products that they make, and from that, and they were really keen to develop new products with me as well. So we came up with the Trickle Net Mini, and again, customers come back and say, can you make this? Can you make this? In 2017, I started working with Bransby Horses. Bransby came to us and said, we've got a problem. We use these big ring feeders for feeding our horses, and the horses are dragging all the hay out, trampling on it, wasting most of it. And we're paying each member of staff at Bransby, we're spending 10 hours a week cleaning up waste hay. So whatever they're getting paid is wasted money. And there's wasted money on the ground that they're picking up in waste hay. So they were hemorrhaging money, and they said, we can't do this anymore. So I went along and developed, with their help, developed something called a topper net, which fixes onto these ring feeders and gives full coverage to. It was specifically designed for them because they wouldn't use, normally people would put round bales in these, but they were just chucking any old big bales in there. So I had to make sure that the whole thing could be covered, whatever shape it was. They tested the prototypes, absolutely loved them. And so yeah, then the topper net was developed as well. From that relationship, they actually, when I won 10 by 10, I had a specific project in mind, and 10 by 10 helped me to realize the goal of working with Horse and Country TV. We made some great TV adverts with Bransby Horses, and that was a wonderful project. And we've got these great assets in the video, in the films that we made. So, and then we come to more recently, I'd been looking at where I wanted to source a knotless material that I could make a new line of products with. I'd been working with India on a knotless product, but it just wasn't quite right. I just wasn't quite happy with the hole size, with the material, wasn't happy with the cost price, or the way that we'd made it. It just didn't fit quite right. And then I was contacted by a company in Spain last year, and their products looked promising. So so I nipped over to Spain in August, just gone. I was only there for a couple of days, and gosh, it was hot. Gosh, I've never been to Spain before. Wow, that was hot. Worked with this company in developing my design of nets. I was only interested in one particular material from them, which is a material that they don't use nobody else buys it, but it's expensive and it's heavy duty and it's luxury and it's everything that I wanted in a material. So my customers, our products are premium products. So if I buy premium materials, I'm going to sell these things. I know I am, because the brand name now says premium, does a great job. So yeah, we started taking deliveries of products from them a few weeks ago, actually. We started with the Softy Net, and then very excitingly, we've just released our Trickle Net Unicorn Feeder, which
we heard about this morning.
This is the Unicorn Feeder. So this is basically, you can see it's got very small holes. You can see it's quite a heavy duty material. It's very strong. It's perfect trickle net design. So so that's the latest product.
There aren't many unicorns around, though. You do know that, as a market, as an addressable market.
Well, there aren't many unicorns around.
Yeah.
Well, we have explained to customers that they can be used for standard horses too, but some magic may rub off. Yeah, you see. So if any magic rubs off onto a standard horse, we can't be held responsible for that.
I heard it was all down to Ivy. Ivy is your new model and queen of marketing.
She's brilliant.
Not that. It was just having the kind of diversity of the token ginger in the picture.
Oh.
It was great.
Gavin, you can edit that bit out, please.
Ellie and I also modelled the net as well, but they weren't great photos, I don't think. So.
Oh, we're using those next week. They're going up next week.
Don't talk to Michelle about her modelling photos. We had a whole day in Bradford this week of modelling photos, and she hates.
Oh, I heard about
that. We're running short of time, so I'm just going to quickly cover off one area you've already covered, but I just want to reinforce it, and then a couple of quick questions. You talked about how valuable it is getting somebody you can trust to give you some external insight, a trusted advisor. Where could our audience go to try and find a trusted advisor? What how do you do it?
Oh, it took me a long time to find it, because as I said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And there is no, as a small business, you don't stumble across advertising which is directed at you. It just doesn't happen. That, unless you go to networking events are a good way to go and get some advice. But in my experience, I still found a lot of dodgy advice at networking events. Particularly, there's always a lot of business doctors at networking events. Huge amount of business doctors. Which I'm very skeptical about. So I think the first place to go would be to go to your local, we've got Business Lincolnshire. So there are government funded organisations which aim to attract small businesses and get you some funding and get you some advice. Sometimes they only act as a go-between in sending you on to people like Russell and Greenborough, or they'll send you on to, perhaps advise about some free courses that you can sign up for. So looking for your local government-funded source of information and support. They will be there. I found they're not always hugely helpful, and very often you go to them for a grant or some help, and it will be available in about a year. That often happens, but I need it now. So yeah, that's another option. Another fantastic one that I mentioned earlier is go to your local university. I had no idea that universities were looking to work with local businesses like this, and it's a fantastic collaboration to be able to work with your local university, get some funding, and bring on a young person in a specific role in your business. That has been tremendously helpful for my business, and so I would always recommend somebody tries that. And aside from that, kind of networking again, but cautious networking. In my experience, the best advice I've had has been free. Good advice will come from good people who want to see you succeed, and so you shouldn't be charged for good advice. Although, don't get me wrong, I've spent a fortune on lawyers, but even a good lawyer will give you some good advice for free. So don't ever feel that you need to pay for this sort of advice. It could just be a 5-minute chat. It could be, if you've got a particular challenge, then get out there and speak to people. But it's really, I understand it's really difficult, because I've been there, and I've been in this vast sea of there's so many different departments and aspects to running a business, and when you don't have the training and you've not been there before, it's just, you do get a bit lost. You don't know where to look or what to do. Okay. You have to make the effort to go and find the help. But it is there. It is there.
Two quick final questions. How is Brexit going to affect you?
Oh.
Okay, moving on.
We import into Europe. Oh gosh, if we've just secured a Spanish supplier, and prior to Brexit, we're favourable to import their goods. After Brexit, their goods may become unviable. Okay. So that might stamp out that supply line straight away, which is awful news. Our customers that we export to out in Europe are already worried that our products are going to be priced out of their range. Certainly the couriers that we work with, DPD and other international couriers are starting to ramp their prices up now in preparation. And the paperwork is going to be a nightmare. Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare.
Final question then from me. And I'm thinking, judging by the chat. So we took. It's a really bad segue from EU exit to Ellen exit. What's your long-term exit plan? So
I kind of fell into this business. I love working in the industry. I love working with horses, and I will always do that. I never put myself working in an office every day and dealing with all the admin and the rigmarole that I do now. And it's not, I don't enjoy it. I enjoy growing the business. I don't enjoy the daily toil of office work. So the business is on a great trajectory. It attracts a lot of attention. And so I am potentially looking to sell a majority of the business now. I always have a plan A and a plan B. You know, plan A might be the perfect world plan where I take huge amounts of money and sell the business. Plan B is keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. And it's a great little business. And I do enjoy what I do. I love what I do when I'm outside of the office. So, you know, I'm not sure which one of those will happen. What I'd love to do in future is I would really like to be an investor at some point. I love I really enjoyed during the 10 by 10 course. I really enjoyed being able to see smaller businesses that were facing the challenges that I had overcome the hard way, and then passing on information to say, look, this is how I did it, but there's a better way, or, you know, you need to speak to this person, or so helping to develop small businesses is something that I've grown really keen to do, and just, you know, sharing some of my experience, and if I can do that with a little bit of a cash injection and a bit of support for these businesses, then yeah, that's what I'd like to do eventually.
Fab, brilliant note to end on. Just a word of caution: being an investor is great until you make your first loss.
Oh, I'm ready for that.
And even if you mentally say, you know, this is money I can afford to lose, I don't really care about it. It's the emotional impact of just seeing something turn to nothing.
Yeah,
you get over it. You get over it.
I imagine you have to be quite stoic. It's you know, I imagine you can get swept up in the excitement, especially when you're dealing with some person's blood, sweat and tears, and you see that growing and developing to an exciting stage. I can imagine getting excited about that, but ultimately I think you have to be quite stoic, and you know, what will be will be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think mentally write it off the day you write the check. Sorry,
yeah.
For the younger ones in the audience, a check is what we used to use to transfer money from A to B. No, you haven't got a clue, have you? Some of you. Brilliant. Ellen. No. Right, you've given your age away now, Granny. That was fabulous. Thank you very much for today. Can I, on all of your behalf, say thank you to Ellen?